Compañeros, welcome to the SQL Data Partners podcast, the podcast dedicated to SQL Server-related topics, which is designed to help you become familiar with what's out there, how you might use those features, or ideas on how you might apply them in your environments. I am Carlos L. Chacon.
And I am Steve Stedman. We are two data professionals trying to help others get a better handle on their database environments, either through this podcast, our training, or our consulting practice. Thanks for joining us on the SQL Trail. Welcome to the show.
SQL Data Partners.
Compañeros, welcome to episode number 107. We're switching things up a bit again today, as we tend to do from time to time. Joining us today is going to be César Oviedo from SQL Data Partners.
Hey, SQL Data Partners, I know that company. Wait, that's our company.
Yes, so César is going to start working with us. He's helping us out with a few projects. And so César is from Costa Rica, and he's an MVP in business intelligence down there. So you can see where he's going to picking up some slack for us. So César, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Carlos. Hi, Steve. A little scared, it's my first time in a podcast, so.
Well, yeah, so it's a little funny or ironic that you say that, because obviously after 100 episodes, we've gotten a little bit used to this, but I know that you have created your own Spanish language version,
Yep.
But you're doing kind of a webcast of sorts in there. And that's been going, you've done what, 6 or 7 episodes?
But it's
Okay.
kind of hard to find the speakers. So, yeah.
Hey. Yes.
I don't have 100 and others, so I am working on it.
Well, so now that you've come on the English language version, I'll send Steve down to the Spanish language version, and we can do that next time.
Oh boy, that'll be interesting. I'll have my translator dictionary handy.
Yeah, I'm sure Google Translate will work just fine. Just speak into the mic and it will, translate everything you want to say. So César is going to be helping us out. We don't know that he'll be on every episode. We're going to try to get him in on as many as we can, but he'll be joining us from time to time. And so it'll be good to talk with you further, César. Ultimately, our conversation today is going to revolve around César's focus, and that's business intelligence. So we're going to check out why small and medium businesses might need business intelligence. And of course, from the Microsoft perspective, how they might be able to take advantage of that and some of the new resources that are available to them. So before we do that,
Yes, do we have any compañero shout-outs this week, Carlos?
we do. And I've checked this name twice because he accused me of saying it wrong last time, but Alberto Lopez. Alberto is giving us some love for episode 104. It's interesting how kind of the comments come in. Somebody tagged Eugene. So episode 104 was the episode with Eugene. We were talking about learning and how to learn. And lots of people thought that was a very interesting episode. And that idea of the half-life, right? The, learning, radioactivity idea. I got a few people talking. So thanks to Nikki, and I'm just going to leave it at Nikki because I cannot.
In a couple of months.
And I'm just going to leave it at Nikki because I cannot pronounce that last name. Bert Wagner and Nicole Gaudra for chiming in on episode 104 as well.
Episode 104 was a lot of fun, and on the non-technical side.
That's right. It's something that we all face with, right? That we kind of deal with on a regular basis.
And we have the Compañero conference coming up in a couple of months.
That is right. We are getting very, very close. It's starting to get exciting. I guess when this episode goes out, we'll be at 60 days or so. So we're getting close. Of course, if you're a listener of this podcast and you want to come, you can use a discount code Compañero, and that will get you 15% or $75 off. We'll remind you that on August 16th will be the next price increase. So the conference will increase $100. So if you want to beat that and apply the $75 to that, you
use the discount code and do it before August 16th, and you'll be in.
That's right. And with your favorite compañeros. We're even going to try to convince Cesar that he needs to come.
Of course, I would love to go there.
Hey, that's right. Who wouldn't love to go? So I won't give too much away, but I do want to start not on the website. So again, you're kind of getting some insider news here. But one of the activities, one of the things that we're going to do at the conference is give you a way to be able to test your SQL Server knowledge with some of the other attendees or against the other attendees. And so we think we've put together kind of a fun little activity spearheaded by Mindy, who is one of our speakers. And that should be great fun.
Yeah, that does sound like a lot of fun. I remember Mindy talking about that a while back. So I'm excited to see how that goes.
That's right. And I guess, let's see, by now, the website has been updated a bit with most things, as this is year one, where we kind of iterated a bit on the website. And so we've made some changes, hopefully made the ability to access the speakers and the session information a little bit easier. And so we hope that you'll check that out and, let us know what you think. So it's been a little while, but I think it's time for some SQL Server in the news.
So Microsoft has just released updated drivers for PHP to be able to connect and use SQL Server. And you might be wondering, well, why is this important? Well, for anyone who's out there coding web applications in PHP and they're trying to get to the SQL Server database, they need to use these drivers to be able to talk to the database. So without that, the drivers have been there for a while, but Microsoft has come up with lots of iterations over the years for them, and they've come a long way from the beginning. And every time they come out, it's always good to see that there's a new batch of patches and stability fixes along the way that make it even better. So if you're using PHP to talk to SQL Server, you might want to look at the new drivers, and consider upgrading.
Yeah, and I think they continue to invest in quote unquote non-Microsoft technologies, right? So it's not just .NET connecting to SQL Server anymore, right? Now that SQL Server is in Linux, I was actually on the Ruby Rogues podcast talking about connecting Ruby on Rails to SQL Server. And of course, I guess PHP's been there for a while, but I think they're trying to increase that adoption, trying to reduce the barriers that developers have to be able to use SQL Server as a data store, which is kind of fun to see, because I think then from an administrator perspective, that might mean that there are more opportunities to then support or be part of different projects than I was previously.
Yes, indeed.
Change or another update. So in conjunction with SQL Server 2017 rather, but I think it's substantial. And that is this idea of scale out support, or basically high availability support for SSRS. Right. So if you've known that even from, for a long time coming, using clusters, they gave a SQL Server cluster, and then you have reporting services. That didn't really work all that well. And so now with this, I said reporting services, and then I guess I should add also, in addition, integration services, and being able to use that catalog DB. So the catalog DB can be used in availability group scenarios. So basically, it can move, right? It can be redirected, and your packages still work.
Then with that, you don't need to be deploying the packages then to every server, because now that's going to be aware of availability groups, and you just have to deploy it to the availability group using the SSIS DB, and you'll be in better shape.
Right. You can leverage that availability group because you started deploying to the catalog. Right. Whereas before it was a little bit prohibitive because I couldn't get replicated. Now it can. So.
All right. Very nice.
Yeah. Okay. So the URL for today's episode is going to be SQLDataPartners.com/BI for business intelligence.
Or SQLDataPartners.com/107 for our episode number.
And so with that, let's go ahead and turn our attention over to our guest. So Cesar, welcome again. Ultimately, we're talking about business intelligence, kind of with a focus, right, for small and medium organizations. So I guess first, tell me, why should these organizations even care about business intelligence?
Actually, the answer for this question is pretty simple. everybody have data, everybody have data. The problem that the business intelligence have had in the past is that, I don't know, maybe around 10 years ago when I started working in business intelligence, everything was okay. The BI is for enterprise. The BI is for huge companies and stuff like that. So I guess that the main problem is that the companies are still considering BI just like a fancy feature or something that maybe is not for me. But to answer your question, everybody has data. So why will not have the features or the mechanisms to get high quality data and to get your insights? Because again, it's different if you have a simple report that is showing you the sales, yesterday sales or something like that, or the providers.
Right. So everybody has data. They should be able to interrogate that data and ask it questions.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
But they've been on the fence or kind of behind because of the complexity, right? You have to have a ton of people and you have to tend to, spend a ton of money on, hardware and software. Yeah. So it gets real complicated real fast.
Yeah. I always say I am not working for Microsoft, or I am not working for Tableau or any other BI providers.
Right.
So basically I am a SQL Data Partners person. Or consultant. So basically, I always say the main problem behind how difficult it is for the small and medium companies to get BI or new features is the providers stuff. Because it is the same thing. It's Microsoft fault, it's Oracle fault, because you as a small or medium company, you doesn't have the money. You doesn't have the money to make your own research. And what about if you want the data, if you want your insights, but let's say some company comes to you and start beautiful things and start talking about big data and data lake and cloud and a lot of different stuff. Of course, this provider is searching for his own business, but you as a small or medium company, you don't have the money to buy that kind of fancy features, but you still have the needs,
Well, so obviously we're Microsoft centric, right? Let me take another little sip of my Kool-Aid here, kind of focused in the SQL Server and the Microsoft stack.
Sure.
You mentioned so even data lake and cloud, and business intelligence is a word we've been hearing, a lot about, I guess. So the easy button approach is the right word. But what options are available to me now that I can take advantage of?
Is Power BI, It's basically, okay, I have Power BI.
Gotcha.
It's an open and free tool. But the problem here, again, is if you are a company and you have needs and you need, to create your dashboard or whatever, you just download your Power BI. Okay, how can I do to make it happen in a good way? How can I do to have real dashboard that can handle my information and, to grow with my data? So basically, this is something really important here, because you can go to and download your Power BI desktop or use to create a powerbi.com account. But what is the problem with that? Okay, I need the training and I need some basic knowledge about how it works. And let's say medium company, probably I have a lot of data. And what about the data warehouse? The data warehouse is not something that is in Power BI. It's something different. It's something about SQL Server. So it's something that, again, is something that needs to be considered. It's not only the tool, it's the development of the projects.
Right. So it's almost like, so the easy button's not quite there, right? You mentioned Power BI being available so they can start using some of this data. And I actually think back, and we're going to use one of the first projects we actually worked together on was an organization kind of managing hotel data. And so they had all this information from spreadsheets and third parties that they were getting this stuff from. And they were just sucking it up into Power BI. And they thought, hey, we've arrived, right? We're using business intelligence. Yay.
Yeah.
But then they started adding more and more spreadsheets and it just got slower and it didn't quite work for them, right? So while they may be able to use the reporting capabilities, you might still need somebody to help you kind of connect the dots from an architecture perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's kind of hard to
help you kind of connect the dots from an architecture perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's kind of hard to find low performance in Power BI, but again, this customer did it. And I know that there is a lot of different people or companies out there trying to make it happen, try to make his own dashboard without any kind of support of anybody. So it's a really, really fancy, interesting thing.
So then let's say a small to medium-sized company wants to do business intelligence and create a business dashboard, and they download Power BI and they are ready to get started, but they don't know where to go. Do you have any tips or suggestions there of how to get to that next level?
Yeah, first you have to understand that if you are doing anything, you can stop talking about Power BI stuff. If you download I don't know, Awesome, there is something bad. Some piece is pending.
It's almost too good to be true.
Yeah, exactly. This is exactly what I mean. Basically, Power BI is this kind of stuff because it's awesome. It's really simple to use. But if the tool is free and I can create a dashboard in a few minutes, basically, let's call it again, a small, medium, or big, huge company, you need architecture behind to support all your solution. So the first step or the first advice is reconsider the steps and consider that a piece is pending.
Sure. So even though they've made this tool available, it might not include all the pieces that you need to get up and going.
Yeah, because again,
not completely fair in a sense. I mean, they're trying to make this easy, right? I guess I'm, putting on my Microsoft hat here for a second, and it's very, very cool. You can't extension of, if you've been working with Excel, that leap or that jump to Power BI is pretty simple, right?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Actually, one of the podcasts did in the past, one of the most, with the most traffic was the death of the data warehouse with Jesus Gil from Mexico. Was a really, really interesting point of view. And it was some really good conversation about this topic about, okay, there is Power BI and everybody is loving Power BI. What is happening? Why still we have problems with the data? The companies are not creating Power Business Intelligence, and this is not that simple. You need solution, you need development, you need architecture to support your design. So basically, this is really, really important.
And I know we've talked about this on this program before, but this idea, right, of being able to solve the business problem and understand that, I think this is a perfect marriage. This program before, but this idea, right, of being able to solve the business problem and understand that, I think this is a perfect marriage of that technology and the business problem. Is that, so you might not be quote unquote writing the reports anymore, but you can still help with some of the plumbing, right? Connecting the dots. And I think if you're willing to do that and speak business, if you will, right? If you're a technology person and be able to help those business owners with that, then there'll be lots of opportunities there for you. So I guess we've talked about Power BI, right? And the free components. And I guess so, other plumbing or other things that organizations might need to look at as they start implementing some business intelligence.
Yeah, of course. We talk a little about data warehouse, but some people doesn't know about it or maybe use or something like that. So again, one of the primary components in a real business intelligence solution is the transformation stuff. So basically, what I mean with transformation, I am talking about integration services, or if I am 100% cloud, I can consider data factory. So again, there is a lot of different mechanisms to do a lot of different things, but again, transformation is really important with the integration services or data factory. As well, I can use data lake, HD Insight, anything. The big data stuff is growing as well.
A little bit scary, right? I mean, again, you hear that data lake, and again, granted, I've only seen demos and whatnot, but I'm not sure I would associate the easy button and data lake just yet.
No, no, it's not for everyone. But this is part of what I'm trying to talk. It's not for everyone, and you have to understand that.
Sure.
This is if not, you don't need that HD Insight to start working with your BI stack.
Well, and I guess I would caveat that slightly and say existing company, right? Because there are plenty of new organizations, a la .coms, right? That might make a lot more sense for. But again, those are primarily technology companies to begin with, right?
Yeah.
And I think they would have a little bit more the staff and whatnot to be able to comprehend and implement some of those pieces.
So, for instance, if you're a .com or a startup, or you have the developers and the IT staff that's already doing the work in the Azure environment, jumping to the data lake or the HD Insights or other things may not be that far off, I think. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. Okay, very cool. Let's see. What else?
Another piece that is really fancy today is the data science stuff. Everybody is trying to understand. Another piece that is really fancy today is the data science stuff. Everybody is trying to understand and talk about data science.
That's right. Yeah. So in fact, so I don't know about there in Costa Rica, but one of the things, the salaries are starting to swing towards the analytics and the data science way. So it used to be that from a salary perspective, database administration was kind of where it's at. And we're starting to see the pendulum swing a little bit there. And those salaries are starting to get real big. And so you're starting to see people jump ship and want to learn more about that.
Yeah, but what is interesting here, because in SQL Server 2016, now you have the R components and Python. Python is for the 17. Right now you have R in Power BI. So it's like, okay, something is changing. You have to understand that a lot of different features for data science is coming to the regular tools. So I always have a really common, it's an existence question about, is that a real, this position have a real future, or it will be, part of everything, because it's in Power BI. So who will use this scripting? A Power BI user? I don't think so. Doesn't have the knowledge. Probably a BI developer. Maybe. And a real data science will say, okay, but this is a dashboard, or this is not the scripting. I really love to scripting stuff and the scripting. So it's like,
Right. So it'd be interesting to see kind of how the job roles continue to evolve there based on the technology that becomes available.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think with that, there will probably end up being some DBA has to do versus a data scientist, and there'll be some overlap there.
Yeah, now that you are talking about the DBA have a huge challenge right here, because everything is changing and in his backs, he's changing everything. Now we have a lot of different components that the DBA have to handle.
I think the days of the DBA whose only responsibility is backups have come and gone.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, obviously this is, I think, just the beginning of the conversation that we'll have. And we'll of course have you back on and kind of continue this discussion and in other episodes. But should we go ahead and jump into the SQL family?
Let's do it. So, Cesar, how did you first get started with SQL Server?
As you know, as everybody in the podcast know, I am from Costa Rica. Started working.
How did you first get started with SQL Server?
As you know, as everybody in the podcast know, I am from Costa Rica. So basically, here in Costa Rica, if I am in the university, basically you are a software developer, basically. So I use this when I started working as a software developer. I just understand that I really hate to be a programmer. It's like, okay, this is not for me. And it's because I really love the interact with the final users and understand the requirements and this kind of stuff that the software programming is not part of that. The software programming is more like, okay, I have a requirements or business case or whatever, or histories from a Scrum or whatever. But this is not for me. I really love to interact with the customers and understand to anything else. And I find SQL Server, actual DTS, in SQL Server 2000, and is okay. Wow, this is for me. And start growing. So basically, this is why I'm here.
Exciting. I can remember using DTS on a number of different things back then.
Yes,
I don't know if the word is wow, but
Yes.
Yeah, so it's funny. So having had just recently had to install, well, I guess that was 2000, right? But installed 2005, kind of, taking me back a little bit there, right? One of the questions we're going to ask you here is, what do you want to change about SQL Server? Having had to deal with the 2005 installation here recently, I can assure you that I'm very grateful for the changes that have been made since those early days.
That is so true.
So with that, having said that, if you could change one thing about SQL Server, what would it be?
One of the primary stuff that I always say that the SQL Server has to change was the let's say the integration with the BI stack was really, I don't know, really strange, really strong. Right now with the Power BI, with Data Lake, with BI, with HD Insight and Data Factory and others, you can see that data platform stack is growing, but outside the SQL Server. So for me, this is something that is already happening, and it's something really, really interesting.
Okay, so I guess I'm, knuckle dragging Neanderthal right here that I'm saying. So the integrations between SQL, the engine and the Power BI, that's what you're...
No. I mean, if you go, let's say, business intelligence solution in 2005 or 2008,
okay,
you will find that you only have integration services, reporting services, and analysis services.
Gotcha.
So basically, everything is inside a box. Everything is inside the SQL Server.
It comes with SQL Server, like it is part of the. It's almost like an attachment, right? An add-on.
Exactly. And right now, this is really, really different because there is a lot of different features and tools that are outside of the SQL Server. So this is, for me, this is awesome. This is the way that Microsoft can grow Power BI month per month. So every time is changing and adding new features that, of course, if process is inside a DVD installation, will be impossible,
So interjecting here, another question. So do you see, like they've done with Management Studio, which I guess is one thing, right? But currently, at least, and correct me if I'm wrong, but, do you see, and I'm not, this is just conjecture on our part, right? We're not saying this is going to happen, but could you see a day when there's an installation or SQL Server reporting services installation, they're kind of their own products?
Yes and no.
Okay.
It's kind of tricky question because if you try to search for different tools or different options instead of integration services, you will find Data Lake. So basically, it's like integration services is the big brother, is the big guy, and Data Factory is the small, the newborn baby, and it's just starting to grow and understand what is the business and how to do everything. So
right.
It's really strange or really difficult for a tool to handle or to be a standalone tool. You can see that if you learn to create integration services in 2005 and you go to 2060 or 70, you will find that basically it's the same. There is only a few changes.
Right.
Why is that? Basically because integration services is a great tool, have a lot of different features, and basically do what needs to do.
Yeah, but so I guess I wonder, and one of the reasons I guess I give pause to that, and again, I'm not saying it will become its own product, but with the advent of Polybase, right? We know that Polybase is going to start connecting to more than just Hadoop. Might you see something like an integration or that middle tier, which is what SSIS does, right? To kind of become its own. Hey, I don't rely on SQL Server necessarily anymore. I can start doing, integrations with different technologies. So I don't know. It should be interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is the best piece of career advice that you've ever received?
Okay. When I started working with business intelligence here in Costa Rica, it was really hard to find. It's like, okay, I'm a BI guy. Basically, I just decided, okay, I will back to be a software developer, start searching for new opportunities and just to have objective to be a full-time BI developer. This is something that is not advice. It's advice from myself. It's something just to go on with what you want to do and search for a new specialization. Again, and I always say, I decide that my specialization will be business intelligence, but I can choose as well software developer. I can be architect or whatever as well in the software area. So just to search for specialties.
It's what you know what you want, go for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Our last question for you today, Cesar. If you could have one superhero power, what would it be and why do you want it?
It's a really strange question. I really love Marvel superheroes, and one of my favorites is I have two, maybe, probably.
Okay.
The first one is Wolverine. Doesn't have any reason why, just because it's cool.
Hey, kick butt and take names.
Yeah, exactly. And some kind of immortality or something, but it's not real immortality. It's like getting old. So like really slow.
And,
Yeah, exactly. The healing factor and stuff like that. And the other is Doctor Strange. So mystical stuff, and doesn't have any relationship with SQL Server. Is that the issue?
That's okay.
Okay.
Well, awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us. And of course, we look forward to working more with you and having you back on the podcast.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for joining us.
Okay. So topics or suggestions for things we should be talking about on the podcast, you can reach out to us on any of the social media options. You can also connect with us on LinkedIn. I am at Carlos L. Chacon.
You can find me at LinkedIn at César Oviedo.
And I'm on LinkedIn at Steve Stedman. And we'll see you on the SQL Trail.
SQL Data Partners.